Will My Bloody Valentine be mine, or should I just go home alone? Stay tuned.
Thank you for coming along. Sit back and relax. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back to Robert Reacts, where I react to things. Thanks for joining me. This week, we're going to be talking about 2009's remake of My Bloody Valentine, or My Bloody Valentine 3D. I've seen it referred to as both. This is a remake of the 1981 Canadian film, which I have not seen, FYI, and I didn't get to watch this in 3D. I had actually been holding off on watching this movie because I wanted to watch it in 3D, and then I just couldn't figure it out. Why did they make it so difficult for us to watch a movie with those red and blue lenses? Just give us the opportunity to do it. Put it on a streaming platform with like the foggy ghost situation that happens with 3D movies. It's a good time for everybody and a great selling point for that streamer, but I don't work in advertising, so. Did you get to watch it in 3D? Let me know. And let me know if it changes your perception of the movie, because a lot of the special effects and stuff are very obviously made to be experienced in 3D, and they just look cheesy without it. So, if you did figure out how to watch it in 3D without some kind of magical television or Blu-ray player, let me know in the comments. I want to give it a try. Although I would probably go for the Final Destination movie that's in 3D or the Saw movie that's in 3D. The one with the car. Mm-hmm. This movie was directed by Patrick Lussier, who you'll know from Dracula 2000. Comment below if you remember this movie. Not even Gerard Butler could save it. It stars Jensen Ackles, who you'll remember from Smallville, Jamie King from White Chicks, Kerr Smith from Dawson's Creek and Final Destination, and a cameo by Selene Luna, who I'm very familiar with. She's a burlesque performer. She's a comedian. I saw her open for Margaret Cho, and I believe she is the voice of an aunt in the movie Coco. And it was really nice to see her in this movie, even though she did get murdered. I mean, that's terrible, to like be enamored with someone and then be like, I just watched them die, but I guess that's the life of a fan of horror movies. So as I said earlier, I was waiting to watch this movie in 3D, and then we watched Hard Eyes, and Hard Eyes inspired us to watch this movie. And so here we are. Spoiler alert, Hard Eyes, way better. Way better. This movie is about a mine collapse on Valentine's Day that leaves 6 men dead. And one of the miners ends up in a coma, and when he wakes up, he's mad. So he goes on a killing spree dressed in his work clothes. That's basically the spoiler-free plot summary for you. Rotten Tomatoes critics gave it a 62, which seems high. Let's see, what did they say? This gory, senses-assaulting slasher film is an unpretentious, effective mix of old-school horror stylings and modern 3D technology. Again, I think the movie is graded on a curve because of the 3D, and I think because I didn't get to enjoy it in 3D, I didn't enjoy it as much. That doesn't mean it's bad. The audience score is 44. This makes a lot more sense. It is kind of a middle-of-the-road movie. Am I going to rewatch it? Probably not. But I'm glad I did see it, and there was some interesting stuff in it. The acting is pretty bad, but the action makes up for it. So you get to dry your tears about the terrible acting with all of the action that you get to experience. And, the action has an extra layer on top of it because all of it was made to be like, zoom, coming at ya, 3D. There's a twist at the end that is annoying. On paper, great twist. But it reminded me, and I hope that this is not too much of a spoiler, but it reminded me of movies like High Tension and Identity. Even though I didn't care for High Tension or Identity, I feel like both of those movies did a better job with this kind of twist. If you like slashers, you will tolerate this movie. It's something to watch when you've watched everything else. I think that's fair. Warning! Warning! So this is your spoiler warning. Spoilers are coming. This movie is over 15 years old, so a spoiler warning seems a little silly, but here it is. This is your spoiler warning. Spoilers begin now. So the movie starts on Valentine's Day in 1997. And an explosion traps 6 miners underground at the Hanniger mine in Harmony. And we get to see all of this in like a newspaper kind of montage at the beginning of the movie. The rescuers arrive and find only Harry Warden alive, but in a coma. And the investigation reveals that Warden killed the other miners to conserve oxygen. And I think in the original, and I do know a little bit about the original because, I had to do research on this movie, but I'm pretty sure in the original, the reason he kills the other miners is to eat them. Already a better plot point. Already in the original. So Tom Hanniger, who is the mine owner's son, is blamed for the explosion because he failed to vent the methane lines. 1 year later, Warden wakes up from his coma and he goes on a killing spree for revenge. And we see him murder hospital staff, patients, and he does this thing that I really enjoy, which he leaves the victim's heart in like a heart-shaped box of chocolates. Like, that's an excellent detail. Perfect choice. He then heads to a mine party. Are mine parties a thing? Comment below. If you live in a mining town and you've been to a mine party and you are not a miner or related to a miner, I want to know. So Tom, who is the mine owner's son, and his girlfriend Sarah and their friends are celebrating Valentine's Day at this weird mine party. I mean, the 90s were absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. Like, this reminds me of the opening scene in Pretty Woman where we go to a club and someone is painting on the wall. And it's like, that's not a real thing. Although maybe it was a real thing. Comment below and let me know. There's a scene in Miss Congeniality. I know this is supposed to be about My Bloody Valentine, but like, can you tell I didn't care for it? There's a scene in Miss Congeniality where they go to a club and they're all banging on drums and there's paint everywhere. And it's like, again, this is not a real thing. I've never been invited to a paint and cover your body in paint party. I guess that wouldn't be the name of it. But anyway, I've never heard of anything like that. So Harry Warden, now dressed in full mining gear and a gas mask, attacks the kids. And we see some of these like obvious 3D moments. Like he gets you through the face and then your eyeball is like way over here. Fun, right? The sheriff shows up, shoots the miner, and supposedly leaves him to die in the mine, right? And then we flash forward 10 years. And Tom returns to the town of Harmony. And I wonder if this was a choice in terms of the juxtaposition of the murders that happen in the town versus the name of the town. And this was the moment where I was like, maybe Hard Eyes wasn't making fun of Hallmark movies. Maybe it was just making fun of this movie, this one specific movie. So Tom comes back to Harmony after his father's death and plans to sell the mine, which makes the manager of the mine very angry. And I get it. Job security, right? So Axel, who was Tom's friend when they were younger, is now the town sheriff, and he's married to Sarah, who, if you'll remember, was dating Tom originally. This all happens in like the span of 30 seconds, so don't get upset if you're confused. It's a little confusing. So Tom's ex-girlfriend is now dating his friend, who is now the sheriff of the town, right? And the sheriff is having an affair with this young girl that works in the same grocery store as his girlfriend. And he takes her to this abandoned cabin to like do the deed. Love yourself, Megan. Like, come on, Megan. What are you doing? He should be taking you somewhere nice. Like, why are you going to the future site of the Blair Witch Project or whatever? Like, Megan. We head back to the motel, which is where Tom is staying, and we see Irene, who was one of the friends from the beginning of the movie. Irene was dating Axel, who is now the sheriff. Okay? So Irene, who is Axel's ex, is getting it on with a trucker, and she finds out that he was secretly taping them and has this whole moment. And this scene is it's dripping with misogyny. You know how they do the thing where like the blood drips off of the font? They could have found a way to represent misogyny with a color and then just had it drip off the movie, because the actress who plays Irene spends the next 15 minutes completely naked. And when I say naked, I mean we see everything, not just topless. Like typically with a movie, it's like you see boobs and maybe a butt, but you never see, frontal nudity. And I don't know, there's a very male gaze thing about the way this whole part plays out. So he realizes he take them and she follows him out to his truck with a gun and is threatening to shoot this trucker, right? And so he goes to get in his truck and surprise, the miner is waiting inside and pickaxe to the head, which cool, I guess, right? It was a little bit like we were in a different headspace because we were like doing something else over here. And then all of a sudden, here's the miner. Surprise. So Irene goes into the manager's office. No one's there. She hides under the bed. Then Selene Luna, the manager, comes in looking for her cat. She looks in the closet and surprise, the miner is in there and he impales her into the ceiling. I would love to know what it was like to film that because it looked like it was kind of fun. And this is what I mean when I say that action helps you dry your tears from how bad the acting is and how thin the plot can be. When the miner kills Selene Luna, Irene just like can't stop whimpering, which is just not most of the things that move the plot along in this movie are just not believable because I guess the actors just didn't have the range. The miner hears her because obviously he does. And then we have this whole carnival game thing with the bed frame where she's behind the bed frame and she's like, "You're not going to get me." And the miner goes for her head and she can do this and this. But like all of this is just completely exposed in segments, but exposed. So they play the game where she's like, fake to the left, fake to the right. And then he hits her in the stomach with the pickaxe and we're done. Which is kind of upsetting because the visual of her hiding behind a bed frame that she like picked up, it was pretty cool, but it wasn't the best shield. Like if you're going to pick a shield, pick one that is solid all the way around that you can actually shield yourself with. Anyway, Axel receives a box of chocolate with Irene's heart in it. And this sparks rumors that Harry Warden has returned, right? We get this weird bar fight scene that is, again, another moment for them to, ha, who, he, ha, huh. Like it's their moment to throw things at your face while you're sitting there wearing the 3D glasses. Wasn't wearing 3D glasses. Wasn't watching it in 3D. I will continue. Tom goes looking for the manager in the mine, but he has an encounter with the miner, like the killing miner, and then the miner locks him in a cage. And this is when I knew it was Tom all along. This is why I hated that twist at the end, because if you're going to have a twist like that, at least make it so not obvious that it is a actual surprise when you reveal it at the end of the movie. But don't give us this whole like mirror twins acting exercise thing that they do when the miner locks him in the cage. He then watches Red, who is the coworker who he got into a fight. He was one of the people he got into a fight with at the bar. He then watches him get murdered and he can't do anything about it. Why? Because he's trapped in the cage, or because he's the killer. Tom insists that Warden has returned because of what he just saw, and Axel reveals that they secretly went back into the mine and killed Harry Warden and then buried his body somewhere in the woods. So then there's this scene where they go to the gravesite. And the gravesite is a shorty fence, a bunch of rocks, and that's it. They just kind of left his body on top of a bunch of rocks exposed. You don't want to dig into the ground and maybe bury him so that if there is a situation where people start dying again, you're like, definitely not that guy. Because we put him in the ground and the worms have had their way with him at this point. No? Okay. I mean, I will say pretty sound logic to be like, oh, this guy's back? Let's go check his gravesite. Sure, sure, sure. So that night, the miner kills the manager and places his body in Warden's grave. And then Axel figures that it must be one of the people who went to the grave with him because not a lot of people knew about the gravesite. We then see the miner show up to the grocery store and attack Sarah and Megan. Here's another great kill. Sarah and Megan are hiding in the back office of the grocery store, and there's a window that lets out into the warehouse of the grocery store, which is so warehouse. If I hadn't, I've worked in warehouses before, so I know that there are windows that just lead to more of the building. It's a strange concept, but it exists. So they're trying to keep the miner out and then escape through the window. And Megan is halfway out, and all of a sudden Megan just gets yanked through the window. And there's just something about a kill that involves a window. See Jenny McCarthy's death in Scream 3 as a great example, or the opening kill from Urban Legend's Final Cut. Two spectacular kills involving a window. The miner then kills Burke at Sarah's house, and we get this obvious 3D moment with the jaw being dislodged and, all that stuff. And then we see Tom visit Sarah in the hospital, and he tells her he needs to show her something at Axel's cabin. So they get in the car and they're like zooming over to the cabin, and Sarah gets a call from Axel. And Axel explains that Tom is the real killer. He spent time at a mental institution and she needs to get out of there. Tom puts together that Axel just warned her, and Sarah has to grab the wheel of the car that they're in and then crash the car so she can escape into the woods. She then makes it to Axel's cabin and hides there, and the miner shows up and chases her from the cabin to the mine. And then we have another scene that I love, which is the dry cleaner hanging uniform scene where all of the uniforms come falling down. It reminds me of when Sarah Michelle Gellar is running through the store that her and her sister work at in I Know What You Did Last Summer. And the killer is very obviously hiding under one of the tarps that the mannequins are under. Lovely tension. So Sarah is still convinced that Axel's the killer, so she knocks him down, grabs his gun, and then Tom shows up, and Tom and Axel are basically doing the Spider-Man. You're the killer, you're the killer, no, you're the killer, no, you're the killer. Tom reveals a detail about Megan's death, and that's how they figure out that Tom is the killer because he wasn't there, so why would he know about Megan dying? Then Sarah holds Tom at gunpoint as he hallucinates the miner walking in, and we have this moment where the miner walks up to Tom and then evaporates. And that's how we figure out that Tom has been the miner this whole time. And it's not that I hate twists like this, actually. It's the way they did it. They did it in such a cheap way where he dissolves and we get a flashback sequence of all of the moments when the killer was striking, and we see Tom doing it instead of the miner. It's just not plausible. And there have been movies where you're thinking, oh, this isn't plausible, like Malignant. Malignant handled this kind of twist way better, even though you're watching the movie the whole time, and by the time you get to that twist, you're like, that's not possible. But it is. It's not possible, but we're watching a movie. Sarah then shoots Tom and hits a fuel tank, which causes an explosion. And Axel and Sarah are rescued from the explosion. And we see that Tom survives and kills the rescue worker who comes to get him. And again, another 3D scene with the goggles and the pickaxe through the face. Tom is able to escape from the mine dressed as the rescue worker. And so I guess they had plans for a sequel, but we never got My Bloody Valentine 2 Electric Boogaloo. But that was My Bloody Valentine. Not the best movie, but it was kind of fun. Parts of it were fun. I will say, I watch I Know What You Did Last Summer every year, and that is definitely a worse movie than this, but the nostalgia is what keeps me coming back. Some of the more memorable kills for me were Irene with the bed frame, or when Burke gets his jaw removed. Those are all great. So my final thoughts on this movie, I'd give My Bloody Valentine 3D 5 pickaxes out of 10. It's not the worst movie in the world, but it's not the greatest. Slasher fans and millennials will really enjoy this one. And I do think if you can catch it in 3D, or if you have one of those special TVs or special Blu-ray players, I would recommend trying to figure out how to watch this in 3D if you're going to watch it at all. Because I feel like that's when the movie sings, is when it's actually in 3D. If you want to check this movie out in 2D, you can buy it or rent it using our Amazon link. The link is going to appear at the bottom of the screen right now, or it'll be in the description box below this video. And let me know what you thought of this movie. Did My Bloody Valentine 3D steal your heart or just your time? Sound off in the comments, like, share, subscribe, and until next time, stay out of the mines.